Hi, welcome to Rock and Metal Invasion. My name is Steve. Coming up on the show today, I am doing my top 10 hard rock and heavy metal albums from 1992, plus lots of honorable mentions. Okay, so a couple months ago, I did my top 10 from 1991. And, from time to time over the last sort of couple of years, actually, I've been doing my top 10 for each year. And I started from 1985 and done all the way through to 1991. And so today I'm going to do 1992. Now, eventually, after 1992, I'm actually probably going to go back and do 83 and then 84. And then I'm going to take the number one album from each year, and then we'll do a top 10 of the top 10 from 83 through to 92. We'll have a sort of see what is my favorite album of those from that sort of that time period, 83 to 1992, which actually happens to be pretty much, the those years where hard rock and heavy metal was very popular in the mainstream, what we now might call the hair metal years, but also, you had thrash coming in as well over that time. But I thought it'd be quite interesting to sort of take my number one album from each of those years. But who knows when that'll happen? Because, like I said, I started 1985 almost 2 years ago. I did 1985, and it's taken me a little while. I'm not rushing it, So just when I feel inspired to do it, it does take a bit of effort, a bit of time, because talking about all the albums released in a year, so many great albums. And of course, it has to be an album I have in my collection, but that's no problem, because if I really like it, if it's going to potentially qualify for a top 10 album, then it's probably going to be in my collection. Now, as we're getting into 1992, there's no guarantee that the album will be on vinyl either. So, or even 1991. So vinyl's starting to get phased out a little bit. As it happens, I think all my top 10 I actually do happen to have on vinyl. So, and I've got some in my honorable mentions, some that are on CD. All right, so top 10 hard rock heavy metal albums from 1992. Let's get into it. Now, of course, as you probably know if you follow my channel and if you've been watching my top 10s from the 80s especially, a lot of hard rock, hair metal type bands are in there. But of course, as we get into the 90s, the musical landscape is starting to change. And, you've got alternative and grunge starting to come in. And of course, in my 1991 top 10, there was Nirvana made, I think, number 2. Van Halen got the number 1 spot, but there was a real mix. I think Pearl Jam was in there, so there were some different bands that don't necessarily fit into the hard rock or hair metal category. So, and this, I'll be honest with you, 1992, it's even changing even more, right? Because of course Nirvana's come out, and really now in 1992, yes, there's still hair metal bands putting out albums. But also now you've got some of these other more alternative bands, these grunge bands coming out as well. And for me at the time, I was sort of pretty open to it. I was just like, I was enjoying the grunge stuff that was coming out, but I was still liking the hair metal bands as well. So anyway, let's get into it. So number 10, I went with Masters of Reality and Sunrise on the Stuffer Bus. This is a great album. This is my favorite Masters of Reality album. Their previous album, their debut album, came out 4 years previous to this. So it's a bit of a wait, and that's a really good album as well. There's a hype sticker here saying the 1992 classic with Ginger Baker on drums, clear vinyl pressing. Ginger Baker, of course, from Cream on drums here. There he is. But, Chris Goss, he's the producer. He's kind of the main guy. This is his band. And, it's really good stuff. My favorite song on here actually probably is a sort of an unusual song called TUSA, where I think it might be Ginger Baker. It's just basically talking over the song about how to make a good cup of tea. But I just really like that. But it's from start to finish, really good stuff. It's not particularly heavy. It's just more of a good rock, sort of good rock album, a little bit alternative, I suppose. Like I said, their first album came out 4 years previous to this in 1988. It's also very good. I think that was on the Deaf American label. Might have even been produced by Rick Rubin. I can't remember, but that's a good one. And then there's another bit of a space of time as well. But then they do put out a few more albums in the late 90s and early 2000s as well. Of course, Chris Goss as well goes on to be, even at the time is producing albums for other bands also. sort of quite associated with this, Queens of the Stone Age, Kyuss, that stoner rock scene. All right, so that was number 10. Right, coming in then at number 9. This might surprise some people because I got a bit of a love-hate thing going on with this band, but it's Bon Jovi and Keep the Faith. So New Jersey was the previous album, and then after that got released, it did well, but it seemed as though maybe the band weren't going to stick around or be able to stay together. There was some issues. I think that might be why they decided to call the album Keep the Faith. They got back together, and I think it's a big improvement actually over New Jersey. Yeah, there's some alternative influences coming in here a little bit, maybe getting a little bit more sophisticated with the songwriting and lyrically as well. But there's just some, there's a song here on this album called Dry County, which is like almost, over 8 minutes long anyway, and that's a really good song. I really like that one. For me, it's just like, oh, there's some real good ones on this one. Yeah, there's some throwaway songs or songs I'm not fussed about. I've never been into their ballads too much. In These Arms and Bed of Roses, I'm just not into. But or even I'll Sleep When I'm Dead didn't do much for me. But I Believe, Keep the Faith, If I Was Your Mother is probably one of the heaviest songs Bon Jovi ever did. Like I said, Dry County is good. Fear's not a bad one. Say a Prayer, which is not actually on my vinyl copy, but it was like a B-side or some CD copies of the album. That's also a really good song. So yeah, I really enjoyed this album. So I thought it's going to make my top 10. So that's at number 9. Number 8, this is I guess probably a band I've probably said is underrated. I think I've put it on my underrated hair metal bands list. Although, a lot of people do seem to know about it and do like it. And the band is Wildside and Under the Influence. So this came out in 1992, and obviously, and it's just come out too late, unfortunately, because it's such a killer album. Just can't believe this was not a hit. But then again, as I say, with the timing, perhaps it was just bad timing. Produced by Andy Johns, great songs like Hang On Lucy, that's really good. But So Far Away, the second song was also really good. Just Another Night, it's a ballad, but I really like that one. Even the last song, Clock Strikes, really good song. Yeah, just I enjoy playing this. I was late to finding this. I didn't find it in '92. It was probably in the late '90s when I managed to even hear about this or discover it. Oh yeah, I'll check it out. Wow, really good. So that's number 8. Number 7, similar type of deal. Bangalore Choir and On Target. Really, very similar situation where you're just coming out too late, but it's so good. And again, I didn't find it in 1992. Probably sometime in the late 90s. I see it and like, oh yeah, cool. Let's check it out. Of course, it's got David Reese on vocals, who I guess previously, was had that one album with Accept. But this is more his wheelhouse. I think this is the kind of band he wanted to be fronting. Probably more, he's had more say with this band. It's maybe his band, more more opportunity to contribute. But I mean, side 2 in particular, I love every song on that one. I love All or Nothing. That kicks off side 2. They've also got a song that was originally written by Steve Plunkett from Autograph. Maybe it was going to be an Autograph song, I think, because I know Autograph demoed it. Angel in Black, that's such a good song. Loaded Gun, amazing. It's got a Doing the Dance, I think it's by John Bon Jovi, Older Nova. I don't really like that one that much. And I think If the Good Die Young Will Live Forever, I think that's another John Bon Jovi one also. But those are not my favorite songs. Like I said, it's all the songs on side 2. Angel in Black, Loaded Gun. Loaded Gun, there's a music video for it. David Reese sounds great. Yeah, it's a really good band. These guys have been in other bands as well. Image was great. I thought everything about it. Production by Max Norman. It should have been huge, but again, just bad timing. Too late to the party, so to speak. Party's over for hair metal would appear, because if that can't be successful, I don't know what could have been. But so there we go. So that's number 7. And now we're going to go to my number 6, which I'll just check my list here, but I'm pretty sure this is number 6. Sometimes I get a bit lost. Yes, it is my number 6. So coming up at number 6, a band that I have, I've talked them up when I get the opportunity to. I really do like these guys. This is their second album, and their first was fantastic, but this one's even better. So this is Love Hate and Wasted in America. Lyrically, I think it's really interesting. I mean, there's some dodgy lyrics at times, but I think they don't take themselves too seriously, but also they're being a little bit satirical as well, lyrically, and great art here as a cover art, which is actually done by Skid, who's also one of the main songwriters of the band. Um, yeah, and Jizzy on vocals, fantastic. I've talked this album and the previous album up enough in the past, but so I think people who watch my channel know I really do like these guys. I think probably a lot of people just would have thought, they're Guns N' Roses wannabes or whatever, but like I don't think so. I mean, yes, you can compare it to Appetite for Destruction, absolutely. But if you like that album, then I don't see why you wouldn't love this one. And for me, this is just as much of a classic. Just great songs. Wasted America, the title song is great, but it's really just one of those albums where you play it from start to finish, and it's really good. Don't fuck with me. I really enjoy that one. Yeah, just but like I say, Tranquilizer, Time's Up, Yucca Man. Yeah, just really good stuff. Miss America. Yeah, really awesome song. So that's number six, and now we're into the top five. Now, what I noticed or what I thought about when I got to my top five, I just thought all of the albums here in this top five, if they could have all have been number one in a particular year. So I just it's just one of those years where there's just been so many great albums, and yeah, it was a bit of a challenge actually to sort of decide what's going to be five, what's going to be four, because like I say, it wouldn't have surprised me if any of these were number one album for me, but they all were released in 1992, so they can't all be number one. So number coming in at number five, I went with Pantera and Vulgar Display of Power. So for me, when this came out, this is like one of the heaviest albums that I had got into at the time. I hadn't really got into thrash that much, a little bit, but not too much yet. And yeah, I just thought, wow, this is good. It's kind of like that. People call it groove metal. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but um, just just fantastic stuff. And now that the Cowboys from Hell, the previous album, I don't know if I checked that out. I may have. I can't remember, but I don't mind that album, but I don't think it's anywhere near as good as Vulgar Display of Power. This is just like this is a new level, so to speak. And of course, they've got a song on here called "A New Level," and it is. They've gone to a new level. I feel with this album. So just, I mean, the first few songs, especially "Mouth for War," "A New Level," "Walk," "Fucking Hostile," "This Love," "Rise." Yeah, great songs. Produced by Terry Date. And yeah, it's just the riffs from Dimebag, fantastic. Full sounds awesome, of course, on vocals. Fucking Hostile. That's such a heavy song. It's so good. I love that one. Mouthful War as well. Yeah, it's just, and of course, they did start out, in the 80s. They were sort of more of a, sometimes people have called them a hair metal band. And they're just an 80s. They were just an 80s heavy metal band, but they were fairly generic. But this really separated them from everyone when they came out with this album. And yeah, it was a successful album. I think it was a bit of a slow build, though. I don't think it wasn't like their next album, which went straight to number one, or pretty much went to number one very quickly. This one had a slow build, and it was just stayed in the charts for a long time. And they toured a lot. I actually haven't seen, obviously being in New Zealand, sometimes bands don't get down here, but Pantera always made an effort to get down here. I've seen them three times. So they always, made an effort to come down here on an album cycle. So, yeah, that's my number five. Number four, another band I really like. It's one of my favorite bands from the 80s who changed their sound, I suppose, a little bit. But they just really, I suppose, they just moved with the times and decided, hey, we're going to actually start being a little bit more serious, lyrically especially. And the band is W.A.S.P and the Crimson Idol. So yeah, those days of Animal Fuck Like a Beast are kind of over, and now they're lyrically trying to be a little bit more. Well, it's Blackie really. This is almost like a Blackie solo album, but you'd argue, I guess, every W.A.S.P album is perhaps, but I think it's so different to what W.A.S.P had done, especially in their first three albums. You could see the change starting to happen on with the Headless Children, but this is just now really carrying on with it a lot more. It's a concept album as well. Says Blackie, but again, like I say, this is much more of a sort of a Blackie Lawless solo album in a lot of ways because it's just him. Chris Himes is no longer in the band, and he's got other guys have come in to help him record the album. That aren't necessarily in the band, so to speak. Um, Bob Kulick is on guitar, I think. You got Frankie Banali on drums, and so there's a whole lot of guys just brought in to help with the recording of the album. But yeah, fantastic concept album. And But yeah, at first when I first heard this, it did take a little while for it to grow on me. But then once it did, it was just like, yeah, just again, it's another one of those from start to finish type albums. It's good the whole way through. So that's number four. And like I say, it could have been number one, but there's just too many other good albums that just bettered out. So number three is Rage Against the Machine. So again, now we're starting to see where some different sounds are coming in. And so for me, when I heard this, at first I was like, oh, I don't know, it's sort of not necessarily going to be my type of thing. But yeah, no, it totally was. And, obviously they're Killing in the Name, Fuck You, I Won't Do What You Tell Me. That was a big hit. Bomb Track, the Tom Morello on guitars was like an alien, right? When I heard this, it was a bit like the Eddie Van Halen on the debut Van Halen album. Really, it's like I have not heard guitar playing like this before, and so it was just fantastic. Again, every song I really either think is good or great. Really good stuff. And this was one of the first albums where it got me thinking a little bit about the lyrics. Like, well, what are they? What's their point here? What are they saying? And actually, kind of got interested in some of their sort of political views and the points they were trying to make. While before, obviously, when you listen to a whole lot of hair metal, you're just like, oh wow, this is just like it's good party music, but this is a little bit different, right? So even just look at the cover art, But yeah, the next album I didn't think was anywhere near as good. Still good because this is so great, but for me, this is always going to be their best album. So there we go, Rage Against the Machine. That's at number three. Next one up, another band. I think this band, I'm sure, would have made my top 10 in previous years. Maybe not the number one spot, but at least the top 10 because every album, their first four albums are classics. This is their third, and this is Danzig and How the Gods Kill. Not easy to get on vinyl. This is original release on vinyl, so please have that. Love the artwork, of course, classic. But yeah, just awesome stuff. The first two albums are great. I think this one's probably the best. I do really like Danzig 4 as well. So this is Gatefold. But I think of the first three, this is possibly my favorite, and that's saying something because the first two are also very good. But Dirty Black Summer, that's one of my go-to songs here. But also Godless. Glenn just sounds fantastic on vocals. So there it is. That's my number two album from 1992. Yeah, sorry, it's not so much hair metal on this one. This is where we're getting a little bit more alternative, a little bit more, just different influences, different sounds becoming more popular. And you'll see that too, even with the some of the other albums that were in contention for the top 10. That it's not just all hair metal. But anyway, we're now up to the number one album from 1992. For me, maybe just my opinion, my favorite album from 1992, and it's Kyuss and Blues for the Red Sun. So I don't really talk about stoner metal much on my channel, but I do like it, especially Kyuss, especially. And I didn't actually get this in, at the time. It was maybe a year or two after picked it up. I'd heard lots of really positive reviews about it. And yeah, just once I started listening to it, I was like, oh, yeah, it's pretty good. And then really just, the more I played it, the more I started to like it. It just grew on me over time to the point that it was just almost like a daily, ritual to put this on. But every time I'd just be like, oh, this is so good. So, just really heavy riffs, fantastic stuff. Josh Homme, of course, goes on to be in Queens of the Stone Age, but John Garcia on vocals sounds amazing. He sounds fantastic. Would have loved to have seen these guys in concert back in the day, but never did manage to. So, but yeah, just really fantastic stuff. And it was nice for me. I I felt it was just good, like to have something that's a little bit different. I'm playing a lot of the hair metal type bands, and then to get into this was like, oh, this is cool, and it opened up my interest in other bands as well that sounded a bit like this. So I did check out quite a few other bands like this. No one's ever been quite as good as this, but I did find some other bands that I quite like. Even like a band like Monster Magnet or Clutch, or some of those uh, other bands that sometimes get put in that sort of stoner metal kind of genre. Yeah, I started to get into them via my liking, for Kyuss. So there we go. That's my number one album for 1992, Kyuss Blues for the Red Sun. So that might surprise some people, but there we go. So that's my number one album, and that is my top 10 for 1992. I'll just quickly go through and show some albums that were in contention for the top 10. But it was really difficult because it's so much great stuff. Axel Rudy Pell, Eternal Prisoner. This is my favorite Axel Rudy Pell album. Jeff Scott Soto on vocals. Yeah, I think the time that Axel Rudy Pell had Jeff Scott Soto on vocals was his best period of albums. So really love this one. Check out Long Time. That's such a good song. Now, unfortunately, no vinyl for that. Please reissue that on vinyl, or issue it on vinyl, because it never got a vinyl release, which is 1992. You would have thought, and I know that some of the Axel Rudy Pell stuff has been reissued or issued on vinyl, so hopefully that one will get done at some point. Megadeth and Countdown to Extinction. Yeah, good album. Not as good as the previous one. I didn't think that actually. I think their previous album did make my top 10 for 1990, but yeah, not quite making it in 1992, but still very good. Another classic band, Alice in Chains and Dirt. This is even better than their debut. Yeah, I really like this one. So many good songs. It was pretty close to making the top 10, but again, I got to take something out, and it just wasn't possible. Now some vinyl some vinyl albums that were in contention. This is a New Zealand band, Push Push, Trillion Shades of Happy. I wanted to mention this because this was big here in New Zealand, even in 1992. This band was actually quite popular here. So yeah, they were definitely in contention. House of Lords, Demons Down, it's their third album, but fantastic, really good album. All those first three House of Lords, well worth checking out. They're pretty consistently good. Unruly Child just got reissued on vinyl quite recently by Real Guy Music, which is great because I've always been wanting to get this on vinyl. Boho Production, yeah, really good stuff. It's fairly generic hair metal, but they do it really well. Lillian X, Poetic Justice. Their previous album I did like a lot more than this, but this is still very good. Really good stuff, especially songs like True Believer. Body Double, that's a really good one. Yeah, this is the original release, has been reissued on vinyl, but this is a original release. White Zombie, this is not their debut album. This is the one most people know about, though. I think their major label debut. And yeah, I just, again, sort of a little bit like, they toured a little bit, I think, with Pantera at the time. They had a similar sort of a sound, like groove metal, I guess you call it, type of sound. So yeah, and I like the follow-up album as well. And of course, Rob Zombie goes off and goes solo with a pretty similar sort of a sound. But yeah, this is great. This is Devil Music Volume 1, and there wasn't a Volume 2, I don't think. But well, the next album you would have thought they might have called it Volume 2, but they then had a different name for it. But yeah, really good stuff. It was funny. Beavis and Butthead were fans, I think, of these guys. Not, of course, fans of Winger, but who I like, and that was the problem, right? Like these kind of bands were like the in bands, and then those other bands that I still liked, they were getting dissed, which was a bit of a shame. But yeah, I like this. Thunderkiss 65, Black Sunshine, good stuff. But yeah, talking bands maybe not getting dissed, but just getting ignored. And this is a really good album. This is Fiona, and Squeeze. It might be her, like she's done quite a lot of albums. It might be her fourth album, but it's not the best cover, I don't think. It's really hard, and her album covers were often a problem. You didn't really know what kind of music it was. I don't really think this is helping. But it's really good, sort of hard rock, AOR, melodic rock, whatever you want to call it. It's not heavy, but it's really well done if you like that type of sound. So yeah, I just again really consistent album, and for me, it's her best one. Big fan of these guys, Giant and Time to Burn. So this is their second album. Their previous album had done quite well, but they had a bit of a hit single. This one not so didn't do so good. But Dan Huff, of course, on guitar, he's fantastic. Interesting enough, he ends up going on and producing Megadeth. But yeah, Time to Burn, really good album. I think it's as good as their first, probably. Really, very similar album, but it just didn't get much attention. I didn't even know this existed until much later on. It just didn't get much publicity or anything at all. So, but it's good. But yeah, probably 1992. This type of music. Same with Fiona. It just wasn't getting the attention, eh? Um, so yeah, there we go. And then last one, a hair metal band. I'm going to put them in the hair metal category, but they actually in 1992 had some success. And Jackal, and I think the reason is because they didn't take themselves too seriously, and they had a good gimmick there with the lumberjack song was a bit of a hit for them, with the chainsaw. That's not one of my favorite songs on here. I love I Stand Alone. That's a great song. But yeah, so that's an honorable mention there for my top 10 from 1992. So there we go. That's it. I could have done a whole lot more honorable mentions, a whole lot in my collection. Oh, that's a good album. That's a good album. But you got to sort of stop it at some point. I know in some years I've ended up with like 20 or 30 honorable mentions, I think. But I thought I'd just not go too long today. But yeah, but there were lots of great albums in 1992. 93, things aren't so good, to be honest with you. I got to say, this one probably quite keen to sort of stop it here. 93, 94, into the 90s. For me, as much as I still was into the grunge and alternative, there wasn't as much good stuff coming out as what there had been through the early 90s and 80s. But like I say, if I do this again, which I'm sure I will, I'll do another top 10, I'll probably go back to 83. And then I'll do 84, and then I'll have done 10 years of my top 10s. All right, well, let me know. What do you think? What's your favorite albums from 1992? And what do you think of my selections? All right, thanks for watching. Make sure if you have not subscribed and you enjoy this type of content, hit the subscribe button, please. It helps out the channel. Hit the thumbs up, and I will catch you later. All right, thanks for watching. See ya.